start? We'll give it a few seconds. Everyone having a good vacation so far?
Yes.
Enjoying Denali? Oh God, how I loathe the thing. Sing the poet, the narrator loathed with the frozen body of his dead companion. Two men were out mushing over in the Yukon behind her dog team. One realized this was his last trip. His dying words were that he didn't want to be buried in the frozen north. He was from the American South. He wanted his friend to cremate him. The promise made is a debt unpaid, and the trail has its own stern code. None of that really happened. Robert Service, the poet, was a bank teller. Sam McGee, the frozen guy, was a road builder who did some prospecting. But I began my program with that because it just shows us that you can have a good poem, a good tall tale about the North without including sled dogs. It looked as you were getting off the bus like a fairly literate crowd. See if anyone here recognizes this. Buck threw himself forward, tightening the traces with a jarring lunge. His whole body was gathered compactly together in the tremendous effort, the muscles writhing and knotting like live things under the silky fur. Anyone? Call of the Wild, Jack London, another part of our culture or literature, basis for movies, television programs, all about a dog that gets shanghaied in Southern California, ends up in the gold fields over in the Yukon. Again, sled dogs, part of the tradition, the culture, the literature of the North. A few people got off the bus, looked like it might be in my age category. See if anyone's ever heard this. Sergeant Preston of the Northwest Mounted Police with Yukon King, the swiftest and strongest lead dog, breaking trail in the relentless pursuit of lawbreakers in the wild days of the Yukon. Anyone ever hear that?
Yes.
Great old television show. Before that, there's usually someone here who points out that it used to be a radio show. I have a confession to make. It's part of my dog sled demonstration. The other day, it's on the program's on the internet. I listened to a few episodes, watched a few episodes on the computer on government time. Let's keep that just between us. My boss hated that joke, but really I worked pretty hard. So not only in poetry, short story, old television program, Native people in Alaska have legends about sled dogs. One goes, the world was divided in two. Great abyss in between, all the people on one side, all the animals on the other. Alone among the animals, the dogs howled and pleaded to come over on the side of the humans. Finally, the people waved them across. The dogs made the great leap, just catching their paws on the far side, and the humans pulled them to safety. That partnership has been going on ever since. That partnership was really important about 103 years ago. First human conquest of the south peak of Denali, highest point on the mountain. Anyone here see the mountain yet?
Yep.
A few people. Maybe tomorrow it'll be clear and beautiful. So, 1913. You know, I worked at Toketna Ranger Station, where people register to climb the mountain. They come come to Talkeetna, drive in, fly in, take the train, take a bus, fly up to base camp about 7,000 feet, and begin their ascent. If you were in Nenana in 1913 and wanted to get to Denali, I think that's the way you did it. Park Road wasn't there, the railroad wasn't there. Aviation was in its infancy. Really only one way to get to the mountain. So stuck Karstens, Tatum, Harper, a couple other native guys from Nenana, went to the mountain. They recently renamed the Talkeetna Ranger Station the Walter Harper Talkeetna Ranger Station. Walter Harper was a native guy from Nenana, first person to set foot on top of Denali. He was also a mushroom. No dogs, no conquest of the mountain. Well, you've heard me talk about an old poem, short story, native legend, for a little history lesson, first conquest of the mountain. Now, would you actually like to see the dogs run? Okay, let's let them know. We're ready, guys. Young people, you're going to have to back up and get behind the trail.
They're ready to run.
So you're going to see the Rangers are putting the dogs in two paw drives. That's how they're trained. One of these dogs in all fours is virtually impossible for a single person to handle. Sometimes I get a dog, I'm a little clumsy. Step on their front paws, it would be a disaster. See, the kennel staff here, hardest people I've met, hardest working people I've met in parks. They organize the fishing operation. None of these guys are getting rich. They do it because they love the dogs and love their tradition. Again, the dogs that we're pulling are training cart and Liberty Auto here, which they all got hitched up.
Yeah, they do.
I think it probably would be noticing they didn't have to coerce the dogs. They're all ready to go.
The dogs are
Oh my God, is that adorable?
Pretty impressive.
Wow.
Actually, this is a part of the program that always amazes me the most. Kennel staff and the dogs did all the work, and I'm out of breath. So we talked a little bit about history of the dogs helping in the conquest of the mountain. Really, these dogs are a vital part of the history of the park. Early part of the 20th century, a young man came here, Charles Shelton, engineer, had already made his fortune and retired. Great naturalist. He did a little hunting, shot some specimens for museums back east. Remember I mentioned Harry Karstens, one of the guys who was the first to summit the mountain. He was his guide, took him out into the wilderness with dog teams. They actually saw something horrible going on out there. The market hunters, to feed the railroad workers, to feed the miners, were shooting wild pigs. It wasn't so bad that they'd harvest a few animals. They were under the mistaken idea that if they wiped out the whole herd, the price would go up and they could make more money. Sheldon realized that if this went on, our wildlife would be gone. He had some connections in Washington. He knew Theodore Roosevelt. Went back to D.C. and lobbied for the creation of a national park here. At the same time, a new magazine, National Geographic, ran a great article about Denali. Sheldon's got his wish. 1917, Congress created Mount McKinley National Park, the original 2 million acres. So Sheldon had his park, now he needs a superintendent. He had his candidate, his guide out in the park, Harry Karstens, tough guy, grew up in Chicago, got in a fight with his brother, went off to the gold fields in the Yukon, was going to make his fortune. Didn't work out. He made a living carrying other men's supplies out into the gold fields. Amazingly, Sheldon got his way. Then, like now, there were a lot of politics, other candidates, but Karstens got the job. So he's here. Wilderness. Now it's a national park. Very limited budget. Anyone think those market hunters were easy guys to get along with?
No.
Imagine going out here and telling them, you can't do what you've been doing to make a living anymore. It's a national park now. Don't shoot any more animals. So with Karstens' limited budget, first thing he did was acquire a team of 7 sled dogs to go out there and patrol. Again, no dogs, no park. What is it about these dogs that make them ideal for that job? See that great double coat? Outer layer like a raincoat, thick under fur to keep them warm when it's 40, 50 below out there. Long legs, compact paws, toes can't be too far apart or snow and ice would build up. Wonderful circulatory system to keep them warm out there, and that big fluffy tail. So when it's 40 below, they can cover their face, preheat the air, put a little moisture in. Our dogs need another couple of characteristics. Rangers, kennel staff went to get the dog just now. Do they have to beg them to come over? They seem pretty willing to go, right? So they love this work. Another characteristic. Look around. A lot of people here. Dogs are pretty welcoming, pretty happy to see us all. You know, park rangers and concessionaire workers volunteer, walk the dogs at night. Never a problem, they're happy to see us. So when you think about it, really unique set of characteristics. Karstens wasn't the perfect bureaucrat. Lasted for a while, and then other superintendents came. They all depended on sled dogs. Every ranger hired needed to be a musher, get out there in the wilderness, the original 2 million acres. That went on at Denali, and then World War II came. Young men, young women all over America were volunteering to join The military, they also volunteered their big working dogs. Here at Denali, big working dogs. They all went off to join the war effort. No dogs left at Denali. Military came here for recreation, training during the war years. Imagine coming here today. Kennels building is the oldest building in the park, still used for its original purpose. Look down there, imagine no dogs, empty dog houses. Must have been a sad time. The Allies won the war. People started to get a little more prosperous, started visiting Denali again. No dogs. They lobbied to bring the dogs back. You know, right after the war, the superintendents and military had been here. Snow machines, snow jeeps. This is old technology. Who needs sled dogs? We're going to go with the modern way. Well, that was secret for me. When it's 40 below, snow jeep might not want to turn over. Our dogs are always ready to go. So, dogs came back. First just for demonstration purposes, and then it dawned on someone, it's a wild place, a wilderness. Let's use the traditional method to go out into the park, be a Park Service presence. 1980, park tripled in size, changed its name from Mount McKinley National Park to Denali National Park. The original 2 million acres was declared a wilderness. What better way to patrol the wilderness than with sled dogs? So down to today, when winter comes, kennel staff will be out in the park, our dogs will be out in the park patrolling. If you look behind our dogs, see that strange blue thing with the furry hat? That's actually sound monitoring equipment. Unfortunately, a bear found it appetizing, doesn't work anymore. This is an example. Every summer, kennel staff will send out emails. You're a scientist in the park, you need something coasted out there, something brought back. We'll do it with our dog teams. See in the middle, little pile of debris. My last discovery hike out there, ran into some man-made boards, a little bit of old rusty oil barrel. Kennel staff's going to use the dog teams, police that stuff up, make the wilderness pristine the way it should be when you visit. A couple seasons ago, Jennifer, kennel's manager, took a couple dog teams up to Yukon Charlie National Park, released up some old oil barrels left over from the military. Native people up there were just delighted to see sled dogs being used in their traditional way. So they're still in the park, still working hard every winter. Anyone been to Triple Lakes Trail? There's a great suspension bridge on Triple Lakes Trail. See that? So, Triple Lakes, beautiful trail. In the old days, to get on Triple Lakes Trail, you needed to wade across Riley Creek. Were you there recently? Would you wanted to wade across Riley Creek? Well, there was an option. You could study the train schedule, walk across the railroad trestle, and get on the trail that way. It's at the second highest railroad trestle in Alaska. Not something I really would have wanted to do. They're going to build a bridge, people bridge, suspension bridge. Could have used a helicopter to move all those materials. Instead, they used the sled dogs, dog teams, to move the wire rope, to move those big beams, build that wonderful bridge, one of the most beautiful places in the park. So down to the present day, our dogs, our rangers, are still working to preserve Denali, working to let people know that Park Service is here. I'm going to give you a chance now to ask us some questions. After that, We'll run the dogs back on their own, back to their spot in the kennel, make a few brief announcements, give you my conclusion, and you'll have a little more time to interact with the dogs. So who has a question for me? How old are they when they start training? Let me look at my cheat sheet right here on my hand. See, Venture and Disco, the two dogs in the middle, are a year old, a little over a year old. Last year at this time, a little before now, there were 8 puppies born. 2 of them went to outside kennels, 6 of them are still here. All 6 are working every day, part of the team. You can see brother and sister still roughhousing a little bit. Another question. Someone. Yes, sir. He's asking if the dogs stay here. Well, of course, they go out in the trail, miles out past Wonder Lake. There's a series of cabins out there. But yeah, part of the time they live in these houses. They put some straw in there. And actually, I've come down here on 70-degree days. The dogs aren't too happy. Come down here when it's 35, and they're joyous. So their ideal temperature in the winter is probably 20 below. They handle it pretty well. Who else has a question? Yes, ma'am. Okay, she's asking why 5? Well, in the wintertime, the teams are going to be 8 or 10. Can you imagine going around this track with 10 dogs? They were probably going like 17, 18, 19 miles an hour when they started out. Ranger would have ended up in the woods somewhere. So it's a smaller team, obviously, for demonstration. There are 2 lead dogs. Their job is to kind of be brave, courageous, not look behind there, see what's going on, lead the team. Almost every musher has stories of lead dogs saying, we're not going there. Then in the morning, the musher goes out and looks, and there's open water, a cliff. Kennels manager here, Jamie, assistant manager, has his own team. He said he can come back to a place in the park in the wintertime after a couple years. He's not sure where the trail is. Wind's been blowing, drifted snow. The dogs will find the trail. Behind the lead dogs are the swing dogs. They're going to kind of keep that sled in line, keep it from going too far in either direction. Then, we don't have them today, the team dogs. They're just providing the power. You know the old saying, the view never changes if you're a team dog. And then in the back, the wheel dogs. You know my little story about Buck. It's all about his owner making a bet how much weight Buck can move from a dead standstill. The weight keeps going up, the bets go up. If he can move that weight, the owner's going to get the money. If he can't, he loses his dog. So imagine out there in the wintertime. Gets a little warm during the day, then super cold at night. Getting that sled moving in the morning requires a little bit of power. That's the job of the wheel dogs. Anyone else have a question? Yes, sir. How far they can travel in the wintertime here? Probably 15, 20 miles between the cabins. They can haul up to 100 pounds each. Here they're going to limit it to 50 pounds. These are the strongest pound per pound draft animals in the world. One more question. Yes, ma'am. How do we train the dogs to do what they're supposed to do? You know, a lot of it is the dog's instinct. They already want to do it. So the puppies, last time I was here, they had a little get-together with a few people, and the puppies get them used to people. Pretty soon, kennel staff will take them for a little walk, run at night. When they get back, they'll get fed. Wintertime, they'll probably run along with the sled, not harnessed up. Maybe pull some of the kennel staff on skis. by next year at this time, they'll be doing the job. Actually, the other dogs probably have as much to do with training the new puppies as people do. Okay, we ready to run the dogs back to their spot in the kennel? Pretty amazing thing to see. You see them return home. They won't be on the leash, they won't be hooked up. As we do that, I can introduce our dogs.
They know they're coming back.
So recently, these are modern harnesses. Until a few weeks ago, we were using for demonstration the traditional harnesses over there. This is a real deal. This is what they'll be wearing in the wintertime.
Chain to the post.
Okay, that's Flo, who's 3 years old. Great personality, a little feisty sometimes. And there she goes, back home.
You're glad their friends are coming back.
This is actually Lucor, who's 6. Big, strong guy. See how he does. There we go. Right back home. We're going to get a little treat when he gets there. You can see they're happy to go home. This is Coben, who's 5. Another great dog. Strong personality. Pretty good. Great on home. Now remember, these two are only a year old. That's Venture. Big pretty dog already. Here's Venture back home. That leaves one of my favorite dogs just because she's so pretty. Another 1-year-old, Disco. Disco's right here in the corner.
Yeah. Oh, I know
There
that
she
close.
goes.
Look at what
Good job, Disco.
right up
Excellent.
there. Just gonna rest.
All right, folks. You remember that on the bus I told you, don't feed the dog. There's actually a dog here you can feed. Right over there on this dog house. Name is Buck. Only eats silver coins, green paper, all of which will stay here in the kennels. Remember, photo ops will use the traditional sled, not the training sled. My conclusion. You know, next winter, when our team heads out, the ranger musher on the runners, the sled will be extra full. Don't worry about the added weight, though. Ghosts and legends don't pay that much. Robert Service, Frozen Sam, Jack London, Karsten Stuck, Harper Tatum, Sheldon will all be along. Buck and King will run out in front, along with all those retired sled dogs whose name plates are in the kennels building. I like to imagine that we'll all be there too. With our collective memory of that frontier which once ran from Key West, Florida to Barrow, Alaska. And in a generation, do you want these Alaska Huskies these living symbols of the Arctic and the North, still to be here, to carry your great-grandchildren's dreams and aspirations of frontier and adventure out into the great Denali wilderness one more time. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.